we will move on from that as well, because we have a lot of other rugby to get to, and we're going to start in New Zealand with the All Blacks and Fiji. Their first test happened and it was a fantastic game. It did finish 57-23 to the All Blacks, but the All Blacks didn't have it all their own way this time. It wasn't 102-0 with no tackles made and all the tries scored. Sure, the very first thing that happened, or one of the first things that happened, was the All Blacks trying to get going from their own 22 with a bit of hubris and getting smushed and picked and kicked over, and it's 3-0 down now. So like, it was good defensive chops from Fiji. A great game from Fiji, really. Ultimately, some of their pitfalls were revealed as well, and the All Blacks were quality to exploit them by the end. But the opening stanza of it was just wonderful to see. The physicality and defensive organisation of Fiji, such that it forced a try of the quality of the Barrett try, the opening score, hands, and like they had to be accurate, because two of the guys who offloaded the ball got absolutely cracked just as they did before it finally reached him and he dotted it down.
Fiji were awesome, and they are awesome, and it was nothing less than I expected. Everyone was kind of taken off guard.
Certainly the Kiwi commentators, where it was funny to hear Justin Marshall going like, "Oh God, the All Blacks must have thought they were going to throw the ball around. They barely offloaded at all, but they're so physical."
And it's 100%. It was all about the defense, as they have been adjusting, and they were remarkably physical and remarkably competitive at the breakdown, just getting all over the ball constantly, trying to use their athleticism to just clean poach, which I love to see. Generate a load of penalties. Ultimately, as they tired, they ended up giving a load away. But they were mighty fierce and competitive, and it was an even game. I think they went 21. They unfortunately went 21-6 down, and then they got to try to make it 21-11. But that whole period, then they conceded very little, all the way up to. They might have even won the game from that point all the way up to 60 minutes, which is when the All Blacks hit turbo drive and pulled away. But it was
some real quality off the bench as well. But it was the sequence leading to that Fiji try was beautiful as well. Aroni Sau breaking up the wing as well, and just a whole sequence of offloads that was lovely. They can still play ball, but they've married it. Vern Cotter has focused their minds, similar to what we're talking about with France, even with personnel changes and stuff, is defense first, because there's no excuse. The guys are super athletes and they're super rugby players. They're just a bit disorganised traditionally, and he's organised them, and now they're physical and they're a force. And it means that the All Blacks had to be in their pomp to break this team down. And they started in kind of Tonga mode. We're going to play a game of sevens here against these Fiji guys, even though it's 15s. I'm going to throw it over here to Bart, see what happens. No, I'm going to get smushed and turned over. Okay, maybe I have to dial in my playmaking. And like the credit where it's due, the All Blacks looked phenomenal, and the way they managed to pull away from a very, very good Fiji side like that in the end was very impressive.
Truly. Just from Fiji's point of view, they were absolutely brilliant, but there were a couple of issues that they that I would cite as well. I thought Dyer and Tuisui in the back row were fantastic, and even Nakarawa had his moments just in those contacts. But just in a couple of key moments, Nakarawa and even Yato just losing the ball, the handling of the ball could have been a little tighter. There was a lot of complaints from Fijian fans about the ref. Like, I rewatched the game, in fact, today, and I didn't disagree with any of the ref's calls, including the yellow card. The Fijians were at their very worst, just drifting offside, falling over the ball when they were trying to jackal. Like, they were brilliantly competitive, and it worked. They did shut the All Blacks down. But then they did give away penalties as well, and they play on the edge, and if they don't get things right,
tackle height is another one.
They're hitting high, they're killing the ball, they're straying offside. Those are work-ons that they have to get right. They
have to look in the mirror as opposed to at the ref for those kinds of things. It's tough when you're in a competitive game and it ends up blowing out, but that's often the way against the All Blacks. It's like we were in the mix for most of the game. 57, damn. And little vexed kind of chat on Twitter afterwards, notwithstanding. They have work-ons. They're mighty encouraging, and they took the All Blacks by surprise with their organisation, and the discipline goes just as you get a little bit more tired and fresh All Blacks come on to challenge you.
The line out defence as well, obviously in need of improvement. That's just getting on top of it.
Always the way for tier 2 teams against tier 1. They seem to struggle. Like, sometimes they have good offensive mauls, but very often they struggle to deal with a well organised tier 1 line out.
Even Georgia struggle mightily in those stakes, and Fiji were no different. It cost them dear. Dane Cole's getting on the board 4 times, although they weren't all maul tries, but he got a couple of them. And then the kicking game as well was like solid at times. Lamani will come back in and improve it, but that probably does need to improve. And
Lamani's not a brilliant box kicker either.
They do need to, they can't just keep chipping it to the back 3. They need to kick a little smarter and kick a little deeper, I think, to really, really threaten the All Blacks and stop inviting them onto it. As good as their defence is, there was a recipe for disaster.
You just tested too much then.
Yeah, and then the other just point of concern or work on I'd look at from Fiji's point of view is just the have they sacrificed a little bit of the Fijian flair? I mean, there was some excellent handling from the forwards. Matavesi was good in there for the try off the back of the maul. That was or the try that just broke off the front of a line out. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
But I just think Nadolo's very slow these days. I know they took Ironi Sewa out this week, but they're very physical, very strong. But as Marshall said, not that many offloads. There's definitely a balance to be struck between being defensively physical and also having that offensive flair that we'd associate
with the sevens. A little bit of it with that try. That
in moments,
but he got.
But just the back line, I think, could be quicker.
Yeah,
but that said, there's no Tuisova or Radradra.
Yes, indeed, and we did say that when you take those two guys out of any team in World Rugby, they immediately become less dynamic, and that was true for Fiji too. Yeah. So they're little caveats, obviously, but I think generally a very encouraging showing, considering what they did to Tonga the week before as well. It was infinitely better than that in terms of a showing, and it tees up an interesting second test as well. There's a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of hype. You don't need to kind of build up a game like All Blacks Fiji because it's on paper exciting, but the fact that Fiji were presenting that kind of challenge for the All Blacks is perfect because it gets their season going with a good kick-off a celebration of Islander rugby and an opportunity for Fiji, but it also prepares them now. They've got some opposition. They'll be ready for Bledisloe when it comes around soon enough.
Yeah, and they have another game against Fiji this week, which we'll talk about in a moment, but I thought there was some talk from the All Blacks point of view that this was disappointing, and there was frustration and shock about the sort of breakdown collision areas, these Fiji getting the edge on them. I just thought, personally, I've never been more impressed with Foster than I have been this season, and this is not a popular opinion right now in New Zealand, who think he should be hung, drawn and quartered and then Razor should be anointed, but I do honestly think there's been a marked and pronounced change in how they're trying to use the ball and how they're trying to play rugby already this season. They're looking to use.
Havili Rico is something that never happened last week here in the centres and beyond that as well.
It's not even a personnel thing. It's just the way they're going about it. They're moving the ball quickly. They're trying to find space. I mean, he highlighted 2 areas in the off season for them to improve, and this was ahead of Super Rugby Aotearoa. He was skills and discipline, and those 2 have improved massively. There were little issues. There were issues with the kicking game. There were
issues from with the Barrett Geordie axis and all that. And
loose kicks from everyone. Yeah, it was just they were sloppy in terms of how they managed to get access to the opposition half. They were sloppy in elements of transition play. Sometimes they were very sloppy at the breakdown. But
those are little nuts and bolts that can and will improve.
Exactly right. But in the main, I think the adjustment they've made is the right one. I mean, the Geordie Barrett try was cheat code rugby, as were some of the amazing scores that they got towards the end. Even little things like Rico Ioane just cutting in for the last Dane Cole's try, where he just straightens and gives perfect pass. Their skill set is on another level to any other team in World Rugby, and it looks a more pronounced difference than it did last year. And they're a team on a mission, obviously, but I would be
climb to the summit past South Africa A and South Africa to the top of the world rankings.
Yes, indeed. So I'm looking forward to people giving out about Foster being proved wrong, because I think they're on the right track.
I think so too. I think they're rediscovering what it is to play all back rugby, and the selection of Havili Rico last week. It's a different combination this week. Leonard Brown back in, but it's interesting to see them kind of leaning into who they are, and we have the Mo'unga Mackenzie axis for the next one as well, which will be interesting to see as well. Glidey stuff going on. That's on this week as well. Test 2 obviously coming up. It's on Saturday, July 17th at FMG Stadium in Hamilton. Kick-off 7:05 local time, and it's going to be reffed by Damon Murphy again. Australian. I don't know what the story is, but Angus Gardner was scheduled to ref both games in this and had to pull out, obviously. I'm not sure why. But,
I don't know. There's any number of reasons it could be, but I don't know.
It's an Aussie for an Aussie anyway. It's there's a potential for this to be a wet weather game. Obviously, it was Dunedin in Forsyth Bar last week.
I think it will be. Hamilton, I was looking at the weather forecast in Hamilton. It's midwinter over there, and it's to be nasty. Weather-wise.
Which could, it'll be an interesting thing to see these two teams go at it in not ideal conditions, because obviously Fiji's defence was surprising to them, and that physicality will remain in the rain, and the All Black catch pass was so phenomenal and the tempo was so phenomenal for some of those tries. It'll be interesting to see if that remains in the rain as well, you know.
Like, 100%. We'll learn a lot from both. I like the idea of this being a wet weather game. It just adds to it. And it's actually like, this is a celebration of Pacific rugby, and as much as we all love watching the Pacific teams play on a dry track, you don't actually have a true celebration of Pacific rugby without having a game in monsoon like rain.
Yeah, no, this is true.
So
thinking of those like slugfests of Tonga, Samoa with World Cups.
Yeah, we're going to get one of them in Hamilton this week as well. But
I
think that they can operate in the wet, and it'll be interesting to see who can.
They're in the Pacific Islands. They're getting battered by wind and rain very, very often.
Yes,
and we can
in
empathise,
between paradise. Which we can empathise with less.
That's true.
The squads have been named for these games as well. There's a few changes on both sides.
I saw Tui Pilato stepping out. He did look a little bit rusty.
He dropped a couple of restarts. He was bad in that first half.
To be fair. Scott Barrett coming in for meaty heft, and
he was talking a big game as well.
I'd say he'll deliver a big game. Brody didn't have a seamless transition back into international rugby.
He didn't.
There was an element of it's not Japan anymore when he was getting smushed in contacts early doors, but it was dipping your toes back in. You know, they want him primed and ready for the Rugby Championship, and he'll be unleashed off the bench as well.
The raft of changes they've made is something else. I mean, they've gone with the same front row of Bauer, Taylor and Laulala, but a completely different lock partnership. Barrett and Whitelock, Akiri Ioane, Artie Savia and Luke Jacobson, completely different back row. I expect back row by committee is going to be something you see a lot from the All Blacks in times to come. It makes a lot of sense. Artie Savia now fresh, Akiri Ioane's a killer as well, and Jacobson's in the form of his life. Aaron Smith maintains his role at 9 because he is the one man who is beyond anyone else pivotal to how this All Black team want to play. If they want to go
the
back
heartbeat of the team.
The heartbeat of the team.
That's what the 9 has to be. And in Aaron Smith, it's what you got. Like, All Blacks play at a frightening tempo, and that's a lot of that is because Aaron Smith
accurate
bullet passes from like on such distance. It means you can play off 9 all day because he can pass at 20 metres.
The width of the field.
Yeah, it'll get 20 metres in around 2.3 seconds. That, like, it's not even like he's other level as far as bullet accurate passing, which is the primary role of a scrum half, despite what some Northern Hemisphere guys, coaches might tell you that box kicking is the most important element, and Aaron Smith will disagree with you. He has improved his box kicking game mainly in the wake of Conor Murray's form, but it's not his primary job.
No, he's always had a strong kicking game. He's just the best 9 out there. Mo'unga gets the nod at 10, which is good to see him rotate in. D-Mac rotates into fullback. That axis is going to be exciting. David Havili maintains his 12 jersey
after a brilliant showing.
Well, indeed, he did throw one pick, but he's I'm excited to see him.
He picked up a card, didn't he, as well at one point, but he actually scored a nice try, put through a fair few lovely linking passes to unlock what was a ferocious D, and no more ferocious than it was in his channel with Bodia, so it was very impressive in that regard.
Exactly, he was busting through in the early goings, and that was very important. He maintains his jersey. Leonard Brown comes in, and then they have to unleash on the bench. They have Dane Coles, Brodie Retallick, Brad Weber, Bowden Barrett, Rico Ioane, Shannon Frizzell as well in the loose forwards. Big colossal. Fiji by contrast, I was just going to say, they have more or less gone with the exact same team.
Bodia has made way, I know.
Yes, Bodia is out. I think he's injured. Yato comes in at 8. It's a straight swap with Tui Sui, who will now come off the bench after a very good showing. Lamani back in at 9. And then, Bully Ruagua, I should say, coming in at 12 for his debut with Naya
Baptism of fire for that man. Because
indeed.
They're trying to build a defence that was led by Bodia at 12, and here he is. Just go out there and contain the All Blacks on debut in the rain.
Indeed, and Tui Suvu comes on the wing for Aroni Sau. But other than that, it's pretty much the same team that Fiji had fielded before. So it's an interesting dichotomy between the All Blacks bringing in a whole new
tier
team.
1, tier 2 stuff in it. That's the difference. Sometimes it's just, you can be brilliant. As we were saying earlier on, it's like there are some tier 2 teams that can make a game of it for 10 minutes, some who can play for 20, 30, 40, some can go 60. The Fiji very nearly did 70 against the All Blacks, who are one of, if not the best team in the world currently. It remains to be seen, but it's a tough ask, and it's 2 weeks back to back, and they can't rotate as much because they can't afford to, because these are their best players available to them right now. And the All Blacks, by contrast, are like, wonder how Mo'unga and D-Mac will get on together. I'm going to just put Bowden on the bench, and if Dane can come on and score 4 tries off the bench again,
ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's a serious concern for Fiji, obviously. We're just going to look at the game briefly from the point of view of each of the two teams, starting with the All Blacks. They're obviously looking to test out some combinations, see if
get
they can
more minutes as well. It's a key thing. It's just building the experience, building the exposure. It's early season for all of these guys. Rugby Championship, Bledisloe, all of that in the focus, in the back of the mind.
They'll see if they can tighten up a few of the areas where they were struggling. Just like obviously they want to continue on with the skills based approach. I'd love to see that in the wet weather, but I'm interested to see just how much they get more stuck into the physicality. Sometimes they can just flip it on its head and go completely from the skills based approach to just we're going to smash you, and they might fancy taking Fiji on, a tired Fiji with the likes of a fresh Scott Barrett and a fresh Artie Sevilla,
a kind of a Crusaders mould of just let's steamroller you in the pack and be clinical out wide quickly.
Exactly. They could turn this into a bloodbath in the rain, if that's the way they want to go about it. I'd be curious to see them try and go wide and D-Mac pull back passes, be it wet or not, and just try and get outside of Fijians who might be stuck in the mud themselves, and just use the speed with which they played after 60 minutes of that game, after 60 minutes of taking brutal hits from a great defence. A defence that's a common force in terms of the top defences in the world.
Like if they can dust off a few of the little errors in themselves and tighten things up, they could be a formidable force for years to come.
But for the All Blacks to take the best that Fiji had and come out in that last 20 minutes still playing at breakneck speed and then just finding seams constantly was just a really great indication of their intent, and I would love to see them put their foot down and instead of doing what they have done over the last few years, and after getting sort of a tough physical showing, going alright, roll up our sleeves and let's put the ball forget the ball for a moment, we're just going to hit these guys and try and get all macho about it,
which they had done incorrectly in the build up to and subsequent aftermath of the Rugby World Cup. They were kind of losing their way by doing a bit too much of that, so
I'd love to see them just double down on the skills, be quicker than you. That's what they're going to need to do to beat the likes of the Box, because there's no out muscling Etzebeth. Seemingly that's just peak muscle in rugby.
Indeed. So from the All Blacks point of view, that is what they're looking to do. It's keep it going in terms of the momentum they've carried in this far, in terms of the game plan and the combinations that they're working on. And despite the rain, you'd like to see them continue to play that All Black brand of rugby and try and test the Fijians, who are obviously going to be a bit more tired and a little bit more battle sore from the first test, but will no doubt still be game for the fight. And for the first exchanges, they will be hitting them very, very hard, shooting up, trying to shut them down. Their game all the time. I really do rate this Vern Cotter Fiji as a more motivated, more professional, more disciplined force already. It's up to the All Blacks to be the better side, to demonstrate their credentials as the world's best side by putting aside a game Fiji, a much improved Fiji, putting aside conditions that are above them and just playing their game and winning it their way.
And the other thing is the scrum for Fiji was creaking.
It was.
If the All Blacks can get on top of them in that area, it can start.
That could be a long day for them.
Put pressure on them. I would be curious to see what they do on defense, whether they can just exert a pressure game on Fiji, whether they can force knock-ons, then force scrums, kick corners.
I'm sure they will attack the pill in the tackle. I'm definitely sure they love to generate turnovers. They don't particularly like getting stuck into dead rucks to try and steal. They'd rather bat the ball out of your hands and go.
That's where I'd like to make them see them to make them adjust in terms of their physicality. Is just show it on the defensive side of the ball as Fiji did, while maintaining your wide approach on the ball, only with sharper kicking from Mo'unga. On defense, you want Scott Barrett getting in people's face, you want Artie Sevilla getting in their faces and basically doing to them what they were trying to do to the All Blacks. Explosive tackles, you're going nowhere, we're getting over the ball, we're turning you over, or you've knocked it on in the wet, and now we have a scrum which we're going to creak as well,
or we're going to gather it straight away and flash it out to the side, and Mackenzie's going to run in, and that was your attack, and all of a sudden it's our 7-pointer, and that's very much when the All Blacks are at their best, that can be the feeling. It's like, we had a beautiful sequence of play. Those 20 phases Fiji put together were great until the steal and coast to coaster.
Absolutely. So that is the All Black picture overall. From Fiji's point of view, obviously, there's much points of encouragement there. The defense is outstanding. If they can just like, I think the next evolution for this defense is to just be a little smarter. I mean, the only reason I'd be critical as Fiji is because I haven't been asleep to the fact that they are like the All Blacks of Tier 2 rugby who are coming for Tier 1.
Yeah.
Like, we had South Africa, Georgia, that was like the Springboks against Tier 2 Springboks. The All Blacks against Fiji is the All Blacks against Tier 2 All Blacks.
It's true.
And Fiji are very much, like, they're very much in the balance with all of these Tier 1 teams and can beat them on their day.
More so than any Tier 2 team, they have the calibre of player individually 100%. To do so.
So now I'm thinking, like, you've got a solid base building for a World Cup, you've got a great defence, you're great in the tackle. I just think they should trust their strength in the contact a little more, because sometimes they're just putting so much almost emotion into their defence, and a bit like Argentina sometimes at their worst, they're flying out of the line and they're giving away silly penalties, or they're flying into the ball. It's like, actually, you're well able to defend here. Keep your width.
Doesn't need to be stopped right now at all costs.
Your one-on-one tackling is outstanding. You can back your ability over the ball as well. Just not every play needs to be make or break. Not every time the ball is there do you need to throw a hand on it, and if you lose your feet, keep a hand on it. They just need to add a little bit of maturity to that defence, and it will be one of the best defences in the world, because their one-on-one tackling and physicality is up there with any in the world. It's
true.
Fantastic.
And you saw it in the first test. It caused the All Blacks a lot of problems. It certainly shocked them. The first few contacts definitely shocked the All Blacks in terms of like, whoa, that's some adversity. Jeez, we had 80 minutes of rugby with none of that last week, and here it was from the opening bell. I expect them to bring it from the opening bell as well. It's I think it'll be the end of this game that'll be the struggle for Fiji, really, especially in the rain.
But if they can bring it from the start and frustrate the All Blacks, that's the win. Especially if it's in the wet weather. Like, if you can spoil the ball, force some knock-ons themselves.
Nakarawa, if he can roll back the ears and be a nuisance in at line-out time and disrupt the set piece from their point of view.
Just make everything tough. Exactly right, because they are tough. That's mission one, and then they do also need to the kicking game needs to be sharper.
Lamani is in, and he is an elder statesman there, but I don't think he's a great box kicker either. It very often it falls to Vola in that jersey to try and be their pretty much sole kicking option. He can't be sole kicking option. They need to have others, but he's their primary one, and he needs to do a little better than he did in the first test, if we're being brutally honest, in terms of
I agree.
Kind of getting the 50-22 action almost going. Like, I know it's not a 50-22 yet, but those kinds of kicks to try and like bring the guys up, or bring the All Blacks up and find grass in behind them, such that you can then bring that defensive pressure up and be cohesive. Don't allow them the chance to transition on kick return, and but get into a dogfight a bit by playing territory. Very often Tier 2 teams, that's where they go wrong in the early, when they still have the energy, they're still all there for the fight, but they just mismanage it and don't play in the right areas, and the more experienced head can just kind of rope-a-dope them a little bit and then strike.
Truly, exactly right. So they do need to be that. They also need to just bring what they have on offense. Obviously the set piece, it would be great if they could hold up the scrum. That has been struggling, as you say. Great if they could disrupt the line out. But in attack, where this Fiji team goes to eat, like Lamani and Vola do need to drive a good tempo. They do need to get wide. But really, I do think it's on like that loose forward trio.
Yato at 8. He needs to have a barnstorming showing, the like of which he put in against Australia in the World Cup.
That's right.
Those just steamrolling top level opposition and getting passes away.
And how good is Johnny Dyer looking? Like, him as a link man, he's looking unreal out there. Kunavula's class as well. If those guys can link up, if they can get maybe Ndolo in there, who's looking a bit slow these days, but he could be a very effective fourth loose forward in and around that breakdown. Get those link up plays. They never look better than when they're just getting little offloads away to each other.
It doesn't need to be big passes. It's just ruck avoidance territory. Offload, shift the point of contact, win a contact, and then suddenly the All Blacks will infringe if you start doing that a bit too much, especially in their red zone. The All Blacks will go straight to just the game killer, play killing penalty. That's the default mode for them.
They will attack the ball as well, the All Blacks. The Fijians, they'll have to be like, Nakarawa had one where he got stripped badly by Retallick. They need to mind the pill a little more, and they might play a little more rudimented. They might limit the offloads again, and
they did in the opening stanzas. They very much limited it in the opening stanzas of the last game, because they were trying to inflict themselves physically. It was a nice nice thought, but they do need to, as you say, stick true to what makes them as well. Like, you do need to mind the pill, but you also can't shirk the offload when it's there. In fact, you're Fiji, you probably should throw that offload. If it's 50-50, it should probably go.
And the quality of the lines that come off them as well. They do need to play off one another, and they're never better than when they're doing that. That is their instinct, and I'd love to see them add that to the game. Although in the rain in Hamilton, I wonder if
short of a few key men.
Yeah, they might just tighten up and go physical. But it'll be an interesting battle nonetheless.
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to go?
I think it's going to be a physical battle for a wee while. I think the All Blacks will struggle in parts to break them down. I think Fiji will show their qualities and show that they're no mugs at any level, which they most assuredly aren't. I think the bench will be the telling factor, as well as the overall fitness of an All Black side fresh from a very, very competitive Aotearoa and a not very competitive Trans-Tasman are just that little bit more prepared, a little bit more ready for test series, as I suppose, as like touring series. Like, this is a 2-match series really, which is kind of uncharted territory somewhat for a fledgling young Fiji side. I think they'll show their qualities, but I think the last quarter will be ugly, and I think it'll be similar, if a little bit more of a margin this time. Well, actually, the only thing that could caveat is if the rain, if the All Blacks are sloppy in the rain, it'll be a shorter margin. But I think
it'll be a lower scoring game. But I don't think Fiji will score 23 either. I think it'll be around the sort of, perhaps in the end, about 42-10 kind of thing. But
something.
I think Fiji will be in there. I think it'll be tight enough. But the All Blacks are impressive, and I think they'll pull away. It's no disrespect to Fiji. I think the All Blacks will probably beat Ireland about 42-10 as well, the way they're playing at the moment. But the All Blacks too good probably for this one, but good on Fiji. Hopefully they can make a game of this, as they did last week, and have some stellar highlight reel tackles and all the rest, and smushing some All Black faces into the dirt and sending a message ahead of a World Cup where they are sure to be competitive.
I definitely want to hear nothing more. I would love to hear that crowd in the rain murmuring. In the first quarter, I want to hear some Kiwi murmurs, dissatisfied, disgruntled Kiwi murmurs that ultimately end up being satisfied shrugs. But yeah, no, I think that's what I hope for from it, and I'm just delighted with it. I really enjoyed that first test, and I think Fiji are just, how can you not like Fiji? How can you not like the All Blacks? It's just rugby for rugby purists.
Absolutely, yeah, it's going to be a great game. Thanks for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and hey, if you have an opinion of your own, if you disagree with what we're saying, leave a comment down below. We might just get back to you.